Hey everyone, this is Cindy. This is an open door. It is March 12th, 2026. This is the hour we have entitled Finding Truth Everywhere. Today it's a conversation with Gary Renard, and Chuck is going to facilitate the conversation for us. Chuck, do you want to say anything first? Do you want me to play the song first? How do you want to do this?
Uh, why don't you go ahead and play the song first, and then I'll do a little talking before I really get started, I guess.
Okay.
I'm going to be looking for guidance and direction in silence while you're doing the song.
All right. Well, when I sat this morning and I was thinking about Gary Renard and I was thinking about the disappearance of the universe, one song came to mind, and so I'll play it. Because who doesn't like a little David Bowie? Here we go.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. Ground control to Major Tom. 7, 6. Commencing countdown, engines on. 3, 2. Check ignition and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping
All yours, Chuck.
Yeah, I guess it is afternoon, right? It starts at noon on Eastern time. So good afternoon, all. Uh, I wish I could say I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm grateful to be here is the term because I I've I do, as a lot of you know, I do usually the a monthly the 12 stepping once a month and do that. But I think I did one other facilitation, and I'm honestly acknowledging a bit of anxiety over this as a actual facilitator, and so I'm playing around. I uh, I accepted because Cindy said, one of her reasons it was picking me was that I have talked before that The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard was an entry into this for me. It was a real opening, and that's true. I hope I don't make this too much about me, but some of it is just I'm grateful because that is true. And let me hear, I'm grateful from all of you that facilitate all the time and how much I've gotten from you in doing your facilitations and that this is available. So I felt a certain duty, so to speak, an obligation to kind of do my part and my share. So because of that and the relation to the disappearance of the universe being accurate, I said yes. And then I've been spinning ever since. But just being honest, here what's going on. I discovered that I have noticed since I got on this journey, and I heard the phrase that I was breathed. I'm hearing, I'm not the doer. And that's exactly what I'm sharing a little bit here, that I am not the doer and I am in total amazement. This it started with I had no idea. I was not a seeker or had any religion, or I didn't even have the term spirituality in my vocabulary uh, in my life. It was that was there. And then after when I got married, I won't take the time to explain the whole thing. I had a spiritual experience where they they made my wife and I get married in a church where they had a revival or something. Because she had been married before, they wouldn't marry us unless we agreed to come back to that. But I don't know what happened. But after that, and with no idea, I was in a bookstore in a drugstore where my wife and I moved to in Cleveland, and I picked a book off of the shelf that turned out to be something like with Edgar Casey, The Sleeping Prophet. All that wasn't the title. I don't even remember what the title of it was. And I had no real meaning to me. And I had no, I still to this day don't know other than I'm not the doer. I picked up that book and got introduced to Edgar Casey and his whole thing there in Virginia Beach in the ARE, and I got introduced to reincarnation and the word spirituality, and it was landing for me, and I don't know why, but uh, so I progressed from there to ending up, I'm in the 12-step program, and very grateful because they're allowing me to have my own higher power. And then now I'm getting introduced to the the third step prayer that we say at the 12-step meeting. I got introduced to St. Francis of Assisi in the 11th step, and it's just happening. The next thing I know, I'm with Neil Donald Walsh and the conversations with God, and I don't know how that happened. I owe the guy that played Mary Tyler Moore's boss on that show. He made some kind of a thing where he had was reading these conversations with God, and I got pushed to get one of those. I don't know why. It wasn't anything that Chuck would have done, but I picked it up and I got addicted to the Conversation with God series, that I ended up actually going to a retreat with him, and I got involved. I dabbled in politics a little bit, and I got involved with John Hagelin. With Dylan Walsh was talking about the Natural Law Party, and the Transcendental Meditation. John Hagelin was running for president, I think in 2000 or something. He was into the quantum physics and all of that, and I got attracted to that. And I was sitting at my computer one day, and this ad flashed up on my screen out of nowhere. And it was for the disappearance of the universe. I had no clue where it came from. I had no inkling, whatever. And I looked at it, it's a disappearance of the universe. Well, I just recently had done this natural law stuff and John Hagelin. I thought, it's got a disappearance of the universe, it's got to have something to do with quantum physics. And but I didn't really, all of a sudden I had this inner thing that I had to order the book. I don't know why. That never made any sense to me. I ordered the book, having no clue why I ordered it. I had no clue what I was really getting. And I get this book, and I'd been doing, I started reading it. I think I'm not trusting my memory for sure, but I think it's on the very first page, on it's his first chapter, second paragraph, and the phrase comes out, "There is no world." I remember reading that, and I remember it was like somebody punched me right in the middle of the gut. I said, "What?" I mean, I'm adjusting to getting acquainted with a higher power and all that, but in the 12-step program, there is no world. And but I said, this is crazy. And but something inside of me was acknowledging there's some truth. And I don't know where that came from. I didn't know what it could be or whatever, but I had this, so I say, I wasn't the doer, and it was doing, and I didn't have a clue. And so I kept on reading a little bit and discovered what he was really talking about was the Course in Miracles and forgiveness and all this stuff. And I go, oh my God, when I was involved with the Edgar Cayce stuff and all that, I bought the Course in Miracles, looked at it, couldn't understand any of it, and put it on in my bookcase. And I didn't realize, but somebody gave me a book called Beyond Words or something like that. I didn't know what that was. I was studying that. Couldn't get that, but I found out that was all about the Course in Miracles too, on a journey with no ending. And I had that on my bookshelf. But when I kept reading The Disappearance of the Universe, the way that Gary presented it, he started making everything really simple, and he made it human, and there was a lot of just being a human being in there, and all of a sudden he's talking about forgiveness, and that forgiveness is the answer to everything, but forgiveness isn't what, and I think probably in my mindset I had it as, you get spiritually good, and out of the goodness and superiority of your condition, you're willing to let all these things go, and that was kind of the start. Even maybe it was coming in my 12-step understanding of forgiveness and all that. And all of a sudden he's turning all that around, and he got me intrigued in the Course in Miracles. That I remembered, oh man, you got that book. And I went and I got it and started reading a little bit. Now I had, like I said, I'd gotten involved. I mean, if I'm doing too much on myself, because I know what I'm really looking forward to is that I don't have a lot more to give you that guy that book than what you're probably going to give me out of the podcast. But I'm I'm doing that, and I got involved with. I was in that Neil Donald Walsh thing, and I was all set about doing his. I think it's I forget what he called it. He had a team, a human team or something, and I had some of his books, and I set up a thing in the library in the city that I lived in. I was going to try and get everybody involved in the human whatever thing for him, and nothing was happening around that for me. It wasn't going anywhere. People weren't showing up. No. And I got a call from a lady that met in the 12-step programs, and we had done some book studies around 12-step stuff and about my ego, myself, and I, or something other like that. And I'm I get a call from her. I'm just like 3 chapters or 4 chapters into this disappearance of the universe, and more than that, but it opened up the Course in Miracles book, and I get a call from her, and she said, "Hey, I'm with a small group of people here. This lady wants to have a Course in Miracles study group in her apartment. Would you be interested?" I don't know. I never mentioned it to her. I didn't even know that she ever heard of it. And I'm going, okay. So I go to that, and none of us are understanding anything in the book. None of us know a thing. We're all the blind leading the blind. And I've got this disappearance of the universe. And I say, hey, I've got this book here, and it's kind of making this thing understandable to me. I'm understanding a whole new thing about forgiveness, and they're talking about, I met some people, and there was a post about this disappearance of the universe was giving people that had been taking a place where people have been working the course for 20 years, and they were getting it a lot quicker and a lot faster. And so I introduced them to that and got going. And so anyway, that's why I agreed to do this. I'm just feeling like, I'm not the doer, and out of gratitude, and it's being put here that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I hope I hope that, at least I'm willing to look for hands and call on hands and listen and see that this thing flows. I really did enjoy the podcast, although it didn't say a lot of things that I'd gotten out of the book early on, but it did, a lot of things were jumping out, and it reminded me of stuff that he had made so simple that I kind of drifted away. That whole concept of the ego and separation, and that's what it's really about. And then that analogy that he used about us dreaming, and he used the analogy of a kid being in bed dreaming and going through all this stuff, but he was really just at home, safe, and he was experiencing all this stuff. And he said, and you don't rush in, as a parent, your kid having a nightmare, you don't go in and shake them and wake up. You do it very gently, and you whisper to them, you're okay. And he used all that as an analogy. He said, wow, this is making sense to me about what's happening in my true subconscious, and that I'm asleep in my spiritual. That began to have some semblance that was landing in me, and it kept me going. And the other thing, he mentioned it in the book, although he further, I had never heard of the term non-dual. He mentioned, I think, that the Course in Miracles was non-dual, but that didn't even mean anything to me. I ended up with Bill Free in the Teachers of God, coming on, and the whole awareness, and they're all of a sudden start feeding in. But then in this podcast, I saw how one of the notes that I made on that was that he was stressing the Course in Miracles was purely non-dual, and he did acknowledge that there was some duality in it, but he says, yeah, that the course was written to meet us where we're at the time and leading us there. So I thought I made a note of that. I thought that was really interesting. He stressed purely non-dual in that podcast. So that was one of the notes that I pointed out that there to bring up. The other thing that kind of interested me, he said at the beginning, he said that they wouldn't do anything, they wouldn't give him any more information until he demonstrated that he was actually applying it in his life before he'd get more stuff. And at the very end, uh, he was mentioning you got to do it, not live it. And it kind of struck me. And then I'm going to stop sharing my stuff and open it up to you guys. I do the 12-step stuff, and I had 12-step experience, and it wasn't a couple of years ago. I was at a anniversary meeting for a 12-step, and the leader, the speaker who gave their lead at that meeting closed his lead with he had been in almost every city in the United States sharing his story, and he'd even been in some outside of the United States. And almost everywhere he ever went, they ended their 12-step meetings with, uh, it works if you work it. And he said, I've never been to one meeting anywhere that ever said, closed with, it works if you know it. And that just landed with me. It came from the 12-step meeting, and here I am at the end of his podcast. He's saying, "Oh, it sounded to me another way of just saying this thing works, but it doesn't work if you know it. It works if you live it and apply it." So with that, I'll stop running my mouth, and I see Cindy's hands up, so I'll go ahead and bring her on.
I noticed that Amy's hand was up before.
Oh,
Was
was
there
it?
something?
I usually see that, but I missed that, I guess. Sorry, Amy.
No, that's fine. You go ahead, Cindy. I'll wait.
The first thing I want to say, Chuck, is thank you for all the ways that you show up. Um, and I deepened into some things while I was listening to you, and I want to highlight them. The first is the last thing you said. I was listening to the guides this morning, and they literally use their own words to say the same thing. They're teaching their attunements in a deeper way. And they said you could say the words if you want to, but that's not what we're teaching right now. We're teaching application. And they went into it deeper and even in, my whole experience and what we're doing in an open door, um, we're recognizing that the truth is simple, right? So it's not so much learning new things anymore, is it? It's coming together to figure out how to implement and hold ourselves accountable for that. So thank you for that. While I was listening to Gary, I had some mixed things going on. I'm going to be real honest about it. Um, a big part of it was the same appreciation you just communicated, right? I don't know where A Course in Miracles came from. I don't know what, you know, the consciousness that wrote A Disappearance of the Universe and directed Gary. It's all kind of really awe-inspiring. I've had so many miraculous, just the fact that we're here now. I don't really have a good grasp. Like my logical mind is, or my egotistical mind, or whatever you want to call it, the imposter self is weak enough that I could see through it to understand that none of this makes any sense. So I have a tremendous um, deep, deep, deep appreciation for those books. And they hit me too at the very before. I mean, they came to me a number of years before the course did. And I know I ate them up. I don't know, I haven't read them in decades, right? And um, I I don't know where they came from, and I don't know why they were so meaningful to so many of us, but they were, right? So it's an interesting thing to be part of the conversation. I've been in parts of conversations where people are like, what's real and what's not real? It's the same with Neil Donald Walsh, right? And these messages, people want to argue that it came out of imagination. It wasn't really God writing the, conversations of God wasn't really God. Well, if it's all God, it's all God, right? So there's such a deep, deep, deep appreciation um, for the role of disappearance of the universe played in whatever it is that's going on here now, right? The same time, I was uncomfortable through a lot of this podcast. Um, I've become more and more uncomfortable with any communication that sounds fundamentalist. And Gary, to me, came across as saying the course is different. It's radical. It's special. My interpretation of what he was saying somehow was the course was special and it was radical. And it's something that you want to take and put apart because it's more radical than anything anybody else is doing. And that rattled me a little bit. I love the course. And in part, it's because it's the same. For me, truth teaching is truth teaching. And I get I light up when I find the truth in all these different traditions. That lights me up. And so I just wanted to put it out there. Um, that parts of this podcast left me feeling, a little out of sorts. And so much gratitude for the disappearance of the universe and the way Gary has shown up and what a beautiful part he was on my journey. So, um, and tremendous gratitude for you, Chuck. Thank you so much for saying yes for this. So that's what I'm putting out there. And now Amy's hand is up. So
Yes, I see that. Thank you. Go, Amy.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, Chuck, too. And I love the way that you described this and your journey with it. It's similar to mine in a certain sense. And I remember, I think I was just starting A Course in Miracles when the book came out. The book must be at least 20 years old because I was into A Course in Miracles, and I can remember reading the title and thinking, what? WTF? How I was still thinking that God was the universe, right? And that everything in the universe was unending and, God was in the universe. I didn't really get that the universe was in God. Um, so just like you, it was a bit of it was an eye opener. It showed me that I still had more to go in my understanding of things. And I really always appreciate when that happens to me, because I tend, like most of us do, to sort of get stuck in the comfort of a truth. And then I rest in that and think, oh, I'm safe right here in this little bubble of truth that I've got. And I don't want anybody to pierce it. And yet when they do, I grok what the new way of looking at things is. And I'm always just, it's so exciting. And that's what this book did for me. Watching the video, I had a very similar response to Cindy. It felt to me like I didn't use the term fundamental, but there are some folks that are still interpreting A Course in Miracles in the same way that I interpreted it when I first read it. And I'm going to just use today's lesson as an example, if I could. Today's lesson is only God's plan for salvation will work. When I first read that, I thought, oh, so God has this plan and it's different than my plan. And I have to relinquish my plan and glom onto God's plan, which means I have to give something of myself up in order to follow God's plan. And I understand that so much differently now. There isn't any other plan. There's only God's plan, and I'm in that. There's nothing to give up. That's what I understand now. There's no separate plan, and even if I think my plan is different than God's, it's still not different. It's the same plan. So understanding A Course from a non-dual perspective now is the only way that I can go deeper into it. And when I read the Course from a non-dual perspective, which is what we're going to do at 4 o'clock again on this afternoon, and I so appreciate everyone who's doing that with me. I just can't tell you how much deeper I can go into A Course in Miracles looking at it from the non-dual perspective. It just opens up a whole thing for me. And what I got from watching the video wasn't quite there. It was like I tasted the dessert, but it was a piece of cake and all I got was the corner of the cake and I didn't get any frosting. And to me, like cake is just something that you put frosting on. That's just an excuse for frosting. So that's probably not a very good metaphor, but anyway, there you are. And I want to say thank you, Chuck, for letting us gather here today around this whole thing. So
Thanks, Amy. Let's see. Can I read Melanie's hand up?
Yeah.
And then Alice is after Melanie.
Yeah. Hi, everyone, and thank you. So great to be here and feel all that wonderful energy. And it was interesting just to hear in the hour plus, someone, quickly go through all of the whole Course of Miracles, basic tenets and themes, whatever, putting it all together like that. And as Amy and Cindy were saying, yeah, I've got me picking up more, I guess now, because when I first really did the Course of Miracles, I really didn't understand it at all. And I read his book really a long time ago too, and it did really help at that time. But now, as Amy was saying, now as we delve deeper into non-duality, it set some red flags for me as he was talking. But I did appreciate all he's done. But when he talked about like training the mind, so then it came like, well, who's training the mind? I could see that kind of question, like, well, who's training the mind to be? I saw that coming through, and when he was training the mind, is that training in the mind in the dream? But then he said, it's just a dream. So we had these two different sort of, and he also talked about, about different lifetimes. And he was talking about himself, he hopes to awaken in 2 lifetimes. But then that sounds like, okay, who are we really? Are we a character in the dream that wants to wake up? Or, isn't it, first, don't we have to go to what's ultimately true, which he was trying to point at, but then he goes back into the dream and he talks about, different lifetimes, and even with the Buddha and Jesus, reincarnations. Well, who's all doing that? It's all just one consciousness being expressed. So there were just ones that made me more aware of, maybe, the different, the depths, that non-duality brings to that, and to start to question a little bit more some of that. And it helps with Amy's delving deeper and seeing through some of the duality of the Course and pointing to what's always true. But I enjoyed listening, so thank you, Chuck, so much for bringing that forward. Great.
Thank you. Okay, Alice.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chuck. Those and but I was I have a Gary story. In my in my once upon a time. Um, so I was kind of excited to revisit him. Around the early 2000s, um, I came out of a like a group therapy where the last instruction was to get a spiritual life, and I didn't know what that meant. Um, and somehow the direction came to religious science and science of mind. Wilmington had a pretty good community, which was I didn't know really. I was just an escaped Catholic, not knowing where I was allowed to practice after that. And about half the people were students of Course in Miracles, which was the first time for me ever hearing that term. And there was so we developed this community and this spiritual center called Awaken Heart that still a vibrant community. And it's where I think for me, where I just became having so experiential about I am not the doer, and that it was about alignment. We used to have a little hats that said align with the divine all the time. And we did a lot of visioning. But I would say I was the doubting Thomas of the gang. Like this ain't going to work. And that never happened. And, we'll see, as things developed quite easily, because there was a lot of just surrender and acceptance, and not what I was used to as a whatever corporate chick. You have to beat the bushes, you have to network, you have to do all this stuff. And so the joke for me became, who called people because we were in Wilmington, and there was the logical explanation that there were a lot of other centers in the East Coast, Philly, Baltimore, Princeton, stuff like that. And these speakers would come around, and there were the proverbial circuit. But anyway, Gary called because I think he was launching this book, The Disappearance of the Universe, and that the Course in Miracles were they were over the moon, and so it was just what it was for me is that it was a perfect classroom to understand I'm not doing anything. I'm not constructing this. I'm not putting pieces together to have the vibrant community that we just all long for. So and what I ordered in your immortal reality from a bookstore down here at the beach. And the guy was like, "What the hell is that?" Do you know what I mean? When I was like, "I'm here to pick up my book," and I got this questioning. So I also, there was a Course in Miracles minister around in this group. Her name is Sharon Young, and I wanted what she had. She was that emblem for me, that she was clear-eyed and obviously, I a clean energy field. It's just so it was that attractor field for me. I didn't I stayed on that one path of a religious science and science of mind studies until I met Sandy. And so I had the experience of Gary Renard being one of those people that called sort of magically and illogically, how did that happen? And I do I did write down one thing, to the undoing the ego's ID. So I do relate to, it's not about addition, it's about undoing the conditioning and the stuff I keep walking around with, and keeping very precious false beliefs. And so it was And I did get that, like a little bit of the same thing about it. But if somebody doesn't, it is radical in the sense that it's unlike so many other things. I always find some of the course language like pretty not like hard hitting, like boom, okay, there's no doubt about what they're saying there. Um, and I think it's radical in that sense that it's not soft pedaled from way, when I get some connection to it. So thanks for this meeting. Thanks Chuck for leading. Thanks for the podcast with Gary.
Thanks, Alice. John, I've seen your hand up.
Hi. Yeah, hi. Yeah, I like to thank you too, Chuck, because everything you expressed there, like about facilitating and stuff like that, and perhaps your reluctance to do it, like it seems all you have to do is just kick the football, and and that's what you did. You got the ball rolling, and everybody's got a story, and you got a story, and the people everybody's on this call with the cameras open. It's open season for you to get their story. All they have to be invited, just the same as you were, and it's a great topic. So I really, totally encourage you to go down this road a lot more, because you do have an incredible story, and it's such a beautiful story. It's a different story, and I made good notes on what you said. It works if you work it, versus knowing it. I mean, lots of little gems, treasures for the treasure chest. They're for different people, like they latch on to where they're ever at, and with your breadth of knowledge and experience, man, oh, it's beautiful. I love what you said about stories about your wife and stuff like that. So I did watch Gary's interview, and you know what? For me, it came with it just goes into a bubble. I don't get discomfort or anything like that. It just goes into a big bubble of spiritual teachings. And if I don't get it, I don't get it. But I get that he gets it, and and he's willing to write about it and talk about it, and maybe that's not my need to know, and that's what the thing is. I get stuff on a need to know basis, and so if I'm any discomfort, and I just so love what you said, Alice, about undoing versus addition, because that's the whole thing. Relative, I understand the ego's got to go, but carrying all these bundles on my back, ego bundles, I got to drop them sometimes, and the further I go up, the more difficult it gets, or something like that. But they got to be dropped somehow and not picked up again. So. Yeah, so that's my story. And by the way, what I really love what Alice opens up, and my story is basically all stories, just a story, just another story. So with that, I'll just pass it over to Indigo.
Thanks, John. Come on down, Indigo.
Hi, everyone. So great to be here. I love being here. It's so great to hear everyone, and thank you so much, Chuck, for sharing and just being open and vulnerable. It's just, at least for me, it's such a blessing to hear what you have to say. And yeah, I just really just listening to what you had to say, and how you're just honest and where you are. And that's to me just such a gift. So, and I just love these teachings of just accepting everything, and knowing that it's all here for me. That's why I just love being quiet. And I just love being here with all of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Indigo. Julie.
I can never get to unmute. Good afternoon, everyone. So happy to be here with you guys. Whew. I listened to it, started it on Monday, and then I finished it this morning. I've never heard of this man before, like a lot of you talked about. So I'm just curious before I give my love. Do you since I'm a newbie, I consider me a newbie. Is that a book you recommend to read? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I thought it was interesting that he did so much of the talking. It wasn't really like an interview. You know what I mean? I'm used to those podcasts where they talk and then yeah. It just kind of like you guys all said, to refresh what I've been learning in these rooms is that, we're all one, the truth, it's a dream. And it's important for me. It was important for me to hear about the ego because, on my mind right now, my husband and I are so wrapped up and we're getting our house ready to sell next week. So the last 2 weeks has been like, heavy duty cleaning and my mind is just, but I'm in a good spot because I have turned it all over to God. I know and I'm thankful to the 12 steps that God's got this, he's got the people coming to the house, buying it and all that. It's just the work. And we haven't moved for like 17 years. I'm a lot older and whoa, my body physically is just like, whoa. But I'm grateful that I can still do what I can do, within reason. So that has been grateful for me to be, even though I haven't been really present in these rooms, but just to know that you guys are here and to hear that in the back of my mind, I got to let go of the ego. And then especially with how the world is right now, I have found myself, even with that, stepping away. And I can tell the difference with my anxiety, with it's just a play. And I think Gary mentioned about how people that act like they're really powerful, they're really scared. And I was like, yep, I can read. Yep, I see that. I see that. I see that. And it was just like, yep. So I just got to continue to say, I'm just grateful that I continue to become more aware and be open. And then I always hear Indigo saying, love, love, love. And it is what it is. And I'm grateful that to be in these rooms, to continue with the open mind and to be willing. And I will get that book. So thank you. And thank you, Chuck. Chuck, you did awesome. I was just smiling ear to ear when I was getting home from the grocery store just to hear you because I haven't led it either yet. And I will, but I'd be like you too, like, oh, because I have so much respect for you guys. And it's like, but you know what? I have to just, okay, even keel. We're all in this together. So, but you did a great job. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, I just had another question I wanted to throw out. He made a big point. This is always within Course of Miracles about how the miracles save you time. And he made a big point about, this will save you hundreds of years. And so I guess my question is, the time is an illusion, right? So, I can see that, how that plays out. I don't know, maybe somebody can, saving time for whom, and also saving, the time isn't real, So anyway, I just saw an anomaly when that, so maybe Cindy can enlighten us, or enlighten me. Thanks.
I wish to surrender my time to Rana's hand is up, so I don't know if she's still driving or she's sitting, but I want to make sure she's time to
She's
speak.
available now.
Hi, everyone. Just got back from the hairstylist. So anyway, yes, I've listened to mostly everything. I was still getting the haircut at the very beginning, so I'm sorry I missed your open, Chuck, but I will listen to the recording. And as I've heard, you must have done a stunning job. So thank you for being willing to lead. I enjoyed this very much. The thing that really I found interesting was like Alex asked one question and Gary talked for 45 minutes straight. I thought that was really interesting because, in other Finding Truths, we always say, why do they ask so many questions? And and I thought, wow. But for me, the experience that I had with the video just kind of clarified and reinforced a lot of the ideas from the course. And I don't feel like I need to read Gary's book. Like listening to all you guys, it never came across my bandwidth. You know what I mean? But I really enjoyed listening to him and the clarifying, especially when Alex asked him about the origination story. You know, where did that first thought come from? I thought that was a neat discussion, you know. And I also appreciated him just reinforcing many times that the course is non-dual, but it's written in a language accessible to wherever we're at. So I came in here, you know, to it full of duality. You know, God's in here, but it's a separate being kind of thing. You know what I mean? And now, like Amy was saying, as I go through it more and more, especially with you guys, it speaks to me in a different way, you know, because I have the remembrance now of what I truly am. You know, but what I really loved, and I had never heard the story about these two beings showing up in his living room or whatever. So that was kind of new for me, which I thought was interesting because I'm like, well, it's just part of the dream. But the emphasis on thinking with Holy Spirit. And that too is dual, you know, is there a me and a Holy Spirit? No, you know, whatever. But as I move along in this one's journey, the willingness to think with Holy Spirit is really a true desire now. And so it feels like the course is becoming more alive to me and his overall explanation, you know, it's one of those things where, and I've heard it from many of you, the more times we read this, the more times we discuss the ideas, the knowledge comes into place. And that's not intellectual, it's a knowing. It's for me, for this one, it's a safety. There's real safety in what I'm learning about here. There's real safety in the understanding that this is kind of like a movie, but I'm learning so much, you know. And the other sentence that comes to me right now is don't try to figure it out. You guys have pointed that to me over and over again. And I feel as I've let go of trying to understand and figure it out, I'm being exposed to what needs to be exposed, you know, and the teachings are coming through. And I'm just grateful, you know. So I had a really nice experience with listening to Gary. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you for recommending this video.
Thank you, Rana.
I don't think it was Chuck that recommended the video. I almost think it was Melanie. I don't remember who told me about it.
I didn't recommend it. I just
No,
did
as
it
soon as I
because
saw it, I went to Chuck, but I don't remember who.
Well, there's no who.
No.
yeah, it's not. Yeah,
I
we're
wanted
not the doers.
I wanted to take a stab at Mel's question, which is funny because the image I'm getting right now comes from the 40-day program. Did anybody not take the 40-day program? Oh, well, in any case, when Lisa Natoli did the 40-day program, she was clear as a bell. It's just such a beautiful experience. But one of her teachings, one of the core teachings from the 40-day program is your point of viewing. From where are you looking from? So as Mel was asking the question, and I'm sitting with being the 40-day program, Ron and I were the 40-day program for a number of years. Like I'm seeing this circle she always taught it as a circle, right? And if I am hanging out in this circle feeling like a separate person, then I was born and someday I'll die and I'm walking along a timeline. That's 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 the sense of being a separate person. In the holy instant, in the recognition that's not who I am, the way Lisa teaches it, you literally, your point of view jumps into the holy instance, into the formlessness. And for some, you're like, you get this new awareness. Isn't it extraordinary? And when you come back to your timeline and this feeling like a separate person, you don't come back to the same place. And that's where you quote unquote save time, if that makes sense, along the belief that you have a linear time track. So I did that. I got chills, so I'm glad I had the chance to say that. Do you remember that, Rana? You like your point of view, and then you're in the holy instant. You pop out of the feeling like you're linear, and
That was one of my favorite lessons in the 40 days because I started just visualizing that immediately. When I would get disturbed, I'd put hand on heart and then I'd be like, "Psh, go vertical, and literally when I would open my eyes, first of all, peace would come and there would be a different response to what was going on that came through. I get all jazzed up about the holy instant.
I know you do. It's one of my, so that's the way Lisa taught it, and it's very useful for me. I hold this whole sense of duality sort of like an object in awareness right now. So there's this object, and this object feels separate. And I've started looking at it from out here, which is very cool. It's what it's been going on in the dyads lately, is looking at the part of Cindy that believes herself to be separate as an object in awareness. And from that kind of viewpoint, it's taken me years to be able to do years, again, linear time. But when I can hold it like that, it's an interesting thing to be able to try to follow these threads that say I'm a person with a problem and find out that they have no origin in reality. Chuck, it's been an hour. You lived through this. How extraordinary. Do you have any final words?
I'm just grateful. Thank you all for your kind tolerance, and appreciate that you're here. I don't know if it matters. I did get a thought that was triggered by the line in the course, because I applied it to the 12 steps as well. As I like that line, the universal theology is impossible. A universal experience is not only possible, but necessary. I don't know why that popped into my head to say out loud, but with that, I'll close. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording. And everyone is invited to come back in 3 hours for Advaita in A Course in Miracles, an extraordinary hour with like just such amazing conversation. Yeah. Let me stop the recording.